UFO encounters rarely disturb us because of what they might be. They unsettle us because of what they interrupt. When trained pilots, calibrated instruments, and structured systems all register the same anomaly, the discomfort doesn't come from imagination, but from collision. A collision between what we trust as knowledge and what refuses to fit inside it. In these moments, the human mind does not panic immediately. It hesitates, searches for language that can soften the rupture, for explanations that can restore hierarchy. Yet beneath that effort lies something quieter and heavier, the realization that our models of reality may not be complete, and that completeness itself might be a comforting illusion we rarely question. These encounters challenge not just science, but the psychological contract we hold with the universe, the belief that observation leads to understanding, and understanding leads to control. When that chain breaks, what remains is not fear, but a prolonged unease. An unease that asks us to sit with the possibility that knowing has limits we were never trained to accept.
The discomfort of credible witnesses. When a sighting comes from someone untrained, the mind relaxes. Doubt becomes a shelter. But when the witness is disciplined, experienced, and accustomed to filtering noise from signal, the discomfort changes shape. We are no longer allowed to dismiss without also dismissing the systems that protect us in everyday life. The unease does not come from believing the unknown too easily, but from realizing how much of our safety depends on trusted perception. A pilot, an operator, a controller does not look at the sky with wonder first, but with responsibility. So when they hesitate, when their voice lowers instead of rises, something subtle breaks. We feel it too. The mind searches for error, fatigue, coincidence, not to find truth, but to restore a sense of order. And yet, the more credible the witness, the more fragile that order appears, leaving us suspended between respect for expertise and fear of what even expertise cannot contain. There is a comfort in believing that machines will see more clearly than we do. Instruments don't hesitate, don't imagine, don't feel awe or fear. They translate reality into numbers, shapes, signals we are taught to trust. But when separate systems align and still produce something we cannot name, the discomfort deepens. It is no longer a failure of perception, but a failure of interpretation. The mind expects agreement to bring clarity, yet here agreement only sharpens the question. Radar confirms what eyes report, sensors echo what memory records, and still, meaning slips away. In that gap, we feel exposed. If our tools function perfectly and reality remains unreadable, then uncertainty is not a temporary glitch. It is a condition. The unease comes from realizing that precision does not guarantee understanding, and that control was never built into observation, only assumed after the fact. When something refuses to fit our explanations, the instinct is not curiosity, but reduction. The mind quietly works to make the unknown smaller, less disruptive, more manageable. We rename it, downgrade it, place it into a familiar category so life can continue uninterrupted. This is not denial in a dramatic sense, but a subtle act of self-preservation. Vastness overwhelms the nervous system, so we compress it into error, illusion, coincidence. In doing so, we regain a sense of scale where we remain central. Yet something is lost in that shrinking. The unknown was not only a threat, but a mirror, briefly reflecting how narrow our comfort zone truly is. The discomfort arises when we realize we didn't seek truth in that moment, but relief. And relief, while necessary, quietly edits reality to protect our sense of proportion. Silence is rarely neutral to the human mind. When signals stop arriving, when the expected response never comes, imagination does not rest. It fills the gap. In the context of unexplained encounters, silence feels heavier than denial. A refusal can be argued with, but quiet offers no surface to push against. The nervous system interprets prolonged silence as exposure, as if something has withdrawn its attention while still remaining present. We are conditioned to equate response with recognition, so the absence of reply subtly destabilizes identity. Are we unseen, ignored, or deliberately avoided? The discomfort here is not about invasion, but abandonment. In the quiet after detection, after tracking, after waiting, we are left alone with our interpretations. And in that space, silence stops being empty. It becomes an active force, pressing against our need to be acknowledged by the universe we are trying so hard to understand. between misidentification and refusal to know.
There is a narrow space where misidentification ends and refusal quietly begins. In that space, the mind is no longer correcting error, but protecting coherence. Calling something a mistake can be honest, but repeating it long after doubt has shifted becomes a choice. Not a conspiracy, not fear, but a preference for stability over disruption. We learn early that not everything needs to be named, especially when naming threatens the structure we rely on. So uncertainty is kept functional, trimmed just enough to remain ignorable. The discomfort here is subtle because it feels voluntary. We tell ourselves we could look deeper if needed, while carefully ensuring we never need to. What unsettles us is not that we might be wrong, but that we might already sense something real and still choose not to follow it. In that moment, ignorance is not imposed, it is maintained.
Control, airspace, and the fragility of superiority.
Control is most convincing when it feels invisible. We move through regulated skies and structured systems, assuming mastery has already been settled. Airspace represents more than territory. It is a psychological extension of dominance, order, and predictability. So when something moves through it without permission, without response, without consequence, the disturbance cuts deeper than threat. It exposes how thin superiority really is. The discomfort does not come from being outmatched, but from realizing how much authority depends on compliance rather than capability. Our systems work because most things agree to behave. When something doesn't, control reveals itself as a negotiation, not a guarantee. In that moment, superiority shrinks into posture. We are left defending symbols instead of certainty, and quietly confronting how fragile command becomes when the sky stops answering to our expectations.
What was that thing?
What remains after explanation fails?
After every theory is tested and every label applied, something still lingers. Not evidence, not belief, but residue. A quiet awareness that explanation was never the point we thought it was. When answers fail to arrive, the human mind does not collapse. It adjusts. We learn to live beside unanswered questions, to fold them into daily perception without resolving them. What remains is not chaos, but a softened certainty, a recognition that understanding is not ownership, and that mystery does not automatically diminish us. In the absence of closure, we are left with relationship rather than conclusion. We continue observing, not to dominate meaning, but to coexist with it. The discomfort fades into humility, and in that space, the universe does not feel hostile or indifferent. It feels vast, quiet, and no longer obligated to explain itself to us.
UFO encounters ultimately leave us with a quieter question than we expect.
Not what is out there, but what kind of certainty we need in order to feel oriented. When explanation fails, we are forced to notice how much of our confidence was borrowed from closure rather than understanding. The universe does not become threatening in that moment. It becomes honest. It reflects back our limits without judgment. What we do with that reflection matters more than the phenomenon itself. We can rush to seal the gap, or we can allow it to remain open, not as a wound, but as space. In accepting that not everything answers us, we recover something easily lost, a calmer relationship with the unknown, and with our own place inside it.